Hey, everybody, welcome. It's another episode of Education Smeducation, the only podcast where I talk about teaching and stuff. What a week. I personally had a crazy week. So we're recording this on January 26th. We bank these and we put because it's tough to get someone last minute. But so this past week, the episode with John Cessna was released. And for that episode, we donated money via our trivia quiz to the Delana Center, which is a shelter for unhomed people in my hometown of Ann Arbor, Michigan. I post about it. I tag them in it. They reach out to me, and now I'm doing a fundraiser for them in June. So if you're at a golf course in Ann Arbor, Michigan in June, I'll be at one of them at some time that month. I have none of the details down. But awesome. Also, I was on the Crushes podcast this past week, and we thank Deanna Ortiz for having me on. In that podcast, you talk about some of your celebrity crushes. And once I got done slurping off Meryl Streep and Dame Judi Dench, what? Ken, what are you laughing for? Those are my gals. My gals. I mentioned a comedian writer named Danny Fernandez, and Deanna tagged Danny Fernandez in the post or whatever, and then I got a DM from my fake celebrity crush. How about that? Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, you're winning.
Anyway, Ken's here. What's up, Kenny?
Hey, everybody. My week wasn't as special as yours, dude. You had an amazing week. Like,
pretty good week.
Yeah. Wow. What a fucking week, dude. No celebrity crushes here. My wife actually told me I can't have one.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Not even for funsies?
No. There's nothing fun about crushing on anybody, apparently, to my wife. So
not even Lola Bunny from Space Jam.
Mm-mm. Bummer. She said she's too hot. So
she's too hot.
Yeah.
She's got I would say she's got a rockin' bod, Lola Bunny.
I don't know if you can say that.
Yeah, you can. Not real. She's not real.
It's kind of bestiality, like, though, still, I think, a little bit.
It's not bestiality if it's a drawing.
Off
the rails yet again.
Yeah.
The comedy team of O'Keefe and Hamlett, right into your ears every week. Also, there was a new president was inaugurated. I guess that's a big deal too. Anyway, our guest this week, an odd situation. This is our third time technically recording with this gentleman. We had some scheduling difficulties and then some editing difficulties, but we're very glad that he decided to spend probably the fourth and fifth hour that we've spent with him doing this show. A member of the family at this point. He's from Grawlix Saves the World. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it. The most streamable, bingeable show on HBO Max involving teachers, those who can't. Ben Roy's on the podcast. Hello, Ben. How are you doing today, buddy?
Hey, what's going on? Hey, what's happening? Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do this. Fifth time's the charm. It's always
here we go, baby.
I think we're gonna nail this one. But
luckily, the only thing that I remember from your episode is you admitting that you did arsons as a child.
Oh yeah, well, we can get to that.
Okay.
I mean, it's really a few short steps from birth to my first arson charge, so not a very long walk. But I mean, if people are watching this, do you put the visuals up? I mean, I do look like an arsonist.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'm sorry about the first one because part of it was my fault. My battery died. You have to charge these things.
Who knew?
Anywho,
they're not perfect machines, and I've been saying that for years.
I thought it was solar, but no, I lost it all. But I let's do this again. We didn't really. It was a while ago, so I don't really remember much.
The only reason I remember, and this is going to really throw a wrench into the Ed Smed heads. Those are our fans, the Ed Schmed heads.
Yeah, and I think it rolls off the tongue.
It's definitely not something that you trip over every time you even think about saying it.
Really,
I think it would look cool on a shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it would. I think I know there's like the Run DMC shirt where it says something other than Run DMC. I think we put a third line of text just so it's even crunchier and shittier. I think
a lot of people have been talking about that for a while. Like a lot of people are saying they were a great band, but that Run DMC shirt, I think they should step back and redo that. And
they should really that was the one problem that people had.
Yeah, it was the whole
was their marketing.
Thing, yeah, and I think that's what brought them. It brought the whole thing down. So
yeah,
we could talk about that if you want later. I'd be glad to workshop something with you both.
Oh yeah, well, there's a lot of hip hop Ed Schmed heads.
Cool. You're not gonna be saying that a lot tonight, are you?
No.
Okay, Edge Schmed heads.
Yeah, I'd love to yes and something like that, being that we're in Chicago, the home of improv, but I won't. Anyway, you're from Maine, huh? How's that? What's that like?
Maine? Yes, I am. I am from Maine. I am from not from good Maine. I am from from Lighthouse, lobstery Maine or anything like that. I'm from central Maine, which is inland and is buggy during the summer and humid and then cold and racist the most of the year. Actually, the racism kind of stays around.
I was about to say, I feel like racism is a year-round sport.
No seasonal
racism. A lot of people take March off. I'm going to give Maine credit.
Little spring break action for them.
They really put it down for a little bit, but
St. Patty's Day is coming up. Let's let them take the job.
And we'll get back at St. Patty's Day, though. No, yeah.
So the racist day, to be honest with you.
I grew up around the capital of Augusta, so I grew up in a very little town called Winthrop. It was a town of 4,000 people or so. Good people. I mean, they're nice people, but I don't ever want to live there again. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, you've sold it super hard. I don't think anyone wants to live there anymore.
No. You know what? It's part of the reason why my real estate business there failed so hard. I mean, people would be looking for a house, and they'd come in, and how long have you two been addicts? I greet them. You're moving to Winthrop. Oh, great. So your pill addiction is really moving up. Congrats. And you want water to stare at while you drone out on OxyContin. It's a really pretty area. Anybody who's ever been to where I'm from is like, holy shit, this is so pretty. I mean, it's a very beautiful area, but it's very poor. It's typical of a lot of New England small towns. It's a very poor town.
New England in general is gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
What you're describing sounds exactly like the area around my college town in the middle of nowhere in Michigan, where it's like there's 3 big kind of like factory-ish farms that have giant grain silos. There's 2 bars, and then there's a Walgreens where everyone buys cough syrup and tries to make that into whatever you turn cough syrup.
Oh, yeah. If you can Robotrip, we used to do a lot of Robitussin back in the day. I mean, you could get real fucked up on Robitussin.
Yeah, my friend would say, Robo makes you do the Robo, man.
Was he
Justin Percival?
If you've done it, you
know
what
Robotrip
I'm talking about. So you know the Robo, like I went to school with this dude named Sean Roach who used to just guzzle. His last name was
the Papa?
No. Oh man, if he were a dad now, oh man, he'd be Papa Roach. Yeah, but he used to guzzle NyQuil and show up just fucked up to school on NyQuil. It was really funny, actually. That was one of the funnier things he did.
That's a pass for comedy.
Yeah. A lot of funny people in Maine.
Yeah. There was Heroin Steve, who we all thought he was doing Tai Chi. He wasn't. He was just
Yeah, it's
Swaying.
one of those places. Like my whole family is still lives in Maine. My brother, my dad, my mom. So I go back and visit quite frequently. But yeah, not an area I'd ever live in myself again. But yeah.
I started having this thing going back to Ann Arbor, and I love Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor is one of the best towns in the country. I love going there. I lived outside of there for a little while.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's the greatest. I'm so lucky that I grew up there. But now that I've reached a certain point in my life, I'm getting like less and less stoked to go back every time I go back. Where in my 20s, it was a little bit like, hey, nostalgia. Yeah. Like I listened to Boys Are Back in Town by Thin Lizzy. I would be excited to go home.
Yeah.
And now in my 30s, I'm just like,
yeah,
well, let's go hang out with mom. Like
I don't, because I think when you were in your 20s, right? Like when I would go back regularly when I was younger, I'd go to the bars and I would I'd see people and I'd always get like real wasted and like have a good time. We had this place when I turned 21 it was called Steppin' Out, and it was in Maine.
Would people go there to cheat on their spouses?
No, it was a strip club in what looked like a defunct roller skating rink. But it wasn't always a strip club. It was a dance club that 2 nights a week had girls from Bodies in Motion. That was the name of the strip company, like the adult entertainment company. And they would show up, and it was the most ghetto, trashy, like just, it was so gross. And we used to go there, and it was hilarious and the best evening. Stepping Out in Maine. And if anybody's from Maine that listens, they've heard of Bodies in Motion. They know about, because they go to Steppin' Out in Maine like Thursday and Saturday, and then they'd be at DeConzo's in Rumford, Maine on Wednesday. They were like this touring, funny, like group of strippers, and you could like the DJ would come out and be like, all right, you know what I mean? Like girls are coming out, they're going to be mingling with you, so make sure you tip them. And remember, guys, you can touch them, you can make contact, but don't put your fingers inside them. That was like
oh no,
it was so dark and so bad. And it was just really,
they're not bowling balls.
Yeah, I know. I know.
That's the fucking crazy. Oh my lord.
Yeah, I mean, the shit they said, and the women, I mean, I felt so bad for the girls who worked for these companies, because they're the most dehumanizing. We would go and we would just have, like, it was like funny to us to go to, it was like you'd get a group of people and just go and laugh and like hang out, and it was in the middle of nowhere, like in the middle of the woods. So yeah, that's kind of the area I grew up. It was basically, if anybody's seen Gummo, very, very similar to Gummo, just colder. So yeah.
So the one Ypsilanti is like right next to Ann Arbor.
Yeah, man, Ipsy was rad. Good hug.
Where'd you go? Elbow room guy?
Mugs.
Okay. Yeah, that Mugs was a little bit before my time.
Yeah.
But my one of the first venues my dumb little hardcore band in high school played at was the Elbow Room.
Oh, that was a good place too.
What a venue. Yeah. We got to we were supposed to open for Negative Approach there. When they were like trying to come back. And then this is the glamour of hardcore. Negative Approach had to back out because John Brannon couldn't get someone to cover his shift at the restaurant he worked at.
No way.
100% true story.
That was hardcore. Like I mean, half the people I knew in bands were like, they were like waiters, or they drove.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
They were delivery drivers and shit like that.
I was a high school student who worked at a diner and also played in a hardcore. Like that was everybody, you know?
Oh yeah. I worked
weirdos.
I worked for a company in Maine when I was playing in a band called 1,000 Year Suffering. I mean,
come on.
So mean.
Yeah.
And I at the time had the very, metal job of dispatching utility companies to construction sites when someone would dig and hit a power line or a phone. So I would call them and I'd be like, you got an emergency there. They dug into a fiber line and you need to get somebody down there as soon as possible. And then at night I sang in 1,000 Years Suffering.
You ate some gravel and you just
what do I do at night? I work for On Target Locating Services. If you need somebody to map out where your water main is, you call me tonight. So I did that. I did tech support for Prodigy Internet, and when that dates me because that was like when Prodigy used to come in like magazines.
Punchline.
The CD. Yeah. So I did that for a long time too, but yeah.
That's nuts. No, there was a guy, he wasn't in our band, but he was in a band that we played with a lot, who was the weekend manager at Hot Topic. And we all had this same
more on brand than that.
I was like, that's
right. But we couldn't decide whether that was like cool.
No, it wasn't. I'll help you to answer.
Okay, thank you. I was always on the not cool side. I was like, no, he's still like, they're selling studded belts and fucking hair dye and Social D vinyl, but it's still next to hot dog on a stick. It's not cool.
No, it was never cool. It was never, there was never a point I felt like at any point. There was a point for everything. There was a point when Korn albums were actually good out. Like there was like that first Korn album, an argument can be made that it was a good album, right? When Limp Bizkit came out, everybody took a taste of the biscuit. Everybody tried the biscuit. Everybody, you can all act as if you didn't. We all put a little butter on the biscuit. We
dunked the biscuit in our tea and we took a nibble.
And then you realized after a while that it's garbage. Hot Topic never at any point to me ever was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I just feel like it was always the worst part of it. It was like,
I feel like it was the emo kid thing. Maybe because I'm like 29, so like that was like My Chemical Romance, like
As I Lay Dying.
It was a lot of like screamy, really screamy bands who like alternative quote unquote subculture bands that girls liked. And I know that sounds really dismissive and shitty, but no,
it's not dismissive and shitty. And it wasn't necessarily that just girls liked them. Terrible boys liked them.
Yeah. Real jerks.
Boys and girls liked shit bands like Norma Jean and all of the, I couldn't.
Devil Wears Prada.
Oh my God, the Devil Wears Prada.
A band?
You called your band name that. Like,
oh man.
And to me, like when those bands had to have, like when I was like playing in a hardcore band, every band had to have 3 words.
Oh,
I mean, I was in 1,000 Years Suffering. It was like that. It was like the Acacia Strain, like bands like I don't know. I'm glad I play punk rock now, and I've come back to playing in a punk rock band because I started playing punk rock, but then I got really into hardcore because I liked bands like Black Flag. I liked Minor Threat. I liked a lot of the bands that were the early like precursors of like that metal style, like Snapcase. I loved Snapcase. And
I was a big New York guy.
One King Down and Indecision. I loved like the anger of that, but then it just went, there was like, to me, and I'm going to get deep, and if there's anybody who listens to hardcore on this, there was a point where it changed, and it changed with the band 18 Visions. There's a band called 18 Visions that came out of like Southern California, and they can fuck right off. because they changed hardcore at that point and they turned it all fashiony and whatever. And it just lost me at that point. And then I was like, I'm going to go back to playing punk rock because that's what I wanted to do anyway the whole time. I just want to sing about boners and like, until I'm in my 40s, write bad poetry about girls that I like and stuff like that. So
I was always like, luckily when I obviously started as a punk rock guy too. And I remember like the first record I remember like saving up money for was And Out Come the Wolves by Rancid. And then the next
how
day,
old are you?
I'm 31.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
That makes
And
sense.
it was like, I heard about this record from 1994 and was like, oh, I should get this because this seems better. And then the next day I was like, luckily this was like baby internet. And I was like, oh, there's this thing, Operation Ivy. That's okay. We'll see if they got that. And then that was down the rabbit hole. But luckily I got super into New York stuff, hardcore wise, which is for jocks.
Oh yeah. Well, at that time, like when you were listening to it, but prior to that, it was like bands like No Redeeming Social Value, Warzone, like they were like punk, they were punk rockers. Bands like Overthrow and Indecision became this band called Most Precious Blood. But like those bands, and then like you're like Chicago had like these amazing huge scenes, and with like Milwaukee, like bands like Seven Angels, Seven Plagues, and like there was like there was still at that time like a punk rock vibe to it, and before that, like man, I love some like Gray Area. There's a great band called Gray Area. There's 2 albums. I think one is self-titled and one is called Fan Belt Algebra. And like those 2 albums, man, I mean, they were just great pop punk hardcore type pop hardcore kind of albums before it got all fucking jockey and turned into like trying to like fight everybody. And I felt like the gang element came into it. Like I know when I got out, FSU started to become very prevalent.
Yeah.
And so I would go to shows. Like I remember going to see like this band Shy Halud and Hatebreed, and Hatebreed brought out like and Blood for Blood and bands like that. And that was when it lost me. Like I was like, there's no like I like punk rock and hardcore because I was like self-conscious and I didn't feel like I fit into playing sports, and I was sensitive. Like I'm just a nervous person. And so these were like dweebs like I was at first, they were like, it was Island of Misfit Toys. And then it became like tackle the dude and spin kick somebody in the face. And it lost me. After a while, I was like, there's no scene unity. There's none of that. It's all just vibing, and I just hated it. And so I feel like punk maintains some of that, and especially pop punk. But I could go on and on about this. If you want to do a punk hardcore episode on this, let's take them to school.
I'd love to. Well, we also, speaking of school, you went to school, right?
I did. Graduate.
No, but I do have a question that kind of goes into this. At your high school, were there other punks? Did you have a tribe that was like, hey, this is the music we like, this is our sound?
Yeah, there were a couple, but I mean, Maine that area was so small that you had to kind of like piece it together from like different schools in the area. So like Augusta was a bigger town. I mean, it was 30,000-ish people. So there were a lot of like, there was like a music scene in the central Maine area that was very robust.
There's a big school in Augusta, right?
Well, no. University of Maine at Augusta is pretty small. Okay. But what there was a lot of people from Maine left to go to Boston to be in bigger bands. Yeah. So like a lot of the bands that I started playing like these little shows with that we would host at this place we called like the Old Mama Schoolhouse ended up going on to be in much bigger bands. Like, we would play with this band. I remember we played with a band called General Strike. The guitarist from that ended up playing in a big band called The Unseen. which was a huge punk rock band at the
I
time.
hate the Unseen. Huh?
You know, a lot of people don't like that.
No, but do you know a band called Darkbuster from Boston?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They had a song called I Hate the Unseen.
Yeah. I mean, they
Love
were
those.
a huge band. Like,
Darkbuster, well, Unseen was very big. Darkbuster was like a regional hit, but the Unseen played like Warped Tour and shit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he played guitar. This guy Johnny Thayer. There were kids that we used to play. They played in this band called POA. They were from Bangor, Maine, which is where Stephen King lives. They ended up forming or becoming a Global Threat, which was a huge punk rock band. We used to play with this band called the Pinkerton Thugs, and they would come up and play shows.
James Lynch?
Paul from that band now plays guitar in the Dropkick Murphys. So like, and then this band we used to play with called Outbreak ended up being signed to Bridge 9 Records. So they were like, and they were amazing. Outbreak was just a rad band. And like, there were a lot of really good metal punk hardcore bands because of our proximity to Boston. We were only about 2.5 hours away, and Boston had probably at that time, I mean, to me, that was some of the earliest Boston hardcore, like Dag Nasty, you know, Down by Law, like those like Boston, like Dag Nasty to me was like one of, like, I loved that band. Like,
They're great.
Yeah. And so, a lot of people came. So, but you called them from like all these schools around the area. Do you remember there was a band called Doc Hopper that was on Go-Kart Records? They were from the town, like over from mine. They ended up moving to New Jersey, and they were on Go-Kart and toured. And so like, there was a lot of that. There was a very big, good scene where I'm from. So, but it was nothing else.
Well, so I kind of had a very similar experience because my high school was for lack of a better term, it was a football factory. I went there to play football. A bunch of people from other towns went to play football, and I was the only person who. I wasn't the only person who liked stuff like, you know, the drop kicks and Rancid and all these fucking
Ivy, and like
I wasn't the only person who liked that, but I was the only person interested enough to dig deeper. So I remember like going to shows alone as like a 16, 17-year-old.
Yeah.
And just being like, oh, I hope there's
everybody the fuck out.
Oh, I had the same beard then that I do now. But like just acne so like, hardcore under it.
You're permanently 30. You've been 30.
I've been 30 my entire
the last 12 years, and you'll be 30 for the next 20. I picture you don't age at all. Like you're like ubiquitous. Like you're like just this dubiously aged human being. Like no one. How old is he? Is he 51 or is he 23? I can't tell. But I thankfully, like, that was because I was just like you said, I mean, if you start fires at say 10 years old, like I did, and you get in trouble for that, it's a warning sign. You're probably kind of an angry kid. And I was very angry, and I found the first time I ever played music, I just found an outlet for that. Like I went to my buddy, the kid, he was a grade ahead of me. His name was Dan, and he skateboarded and I skateboarded. And I always thought he was cool because he had earrings, and he like listened to music I'd never heard of. He like ordered music. I'd never heard of people like ordering from, you know, Punk and Disorderly, and like, he would like get zines and order records. And I was like, what? You can do that? You know, like
that blew my mind as well.
Yeah. And being in the middle of nowhere in Maine. And then I went to his house, and he had a band. And then one day I would just sit and watch them play. And he was like, do you want to sing? And I mean, I think I was 15 years old. I grabbed that mic, and that I knew I left that day going, that's what I want to do with the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. I mean, whether it's stand up or I didn't know stand up at that time wasn't something I thought about doing, but I just wanted to be in front of a microphone and like, I really, it was music. Like music was the only thing I wanted to do.
I had a very similar experience. When I was in high school, I worked at a grocery store, and the first time I got on the loudspeaker and said, "Hey, price check," blew my mind.
That was it.
It was it.
Yeah. And hearing the authority in your voice.
Oh yeah.
Because you would
price check aisle 9.
Yeah. And your voice automatically deepened.
Yeah.
And you just had that. I remember I met you the first time, and we were one of the first times I met you, we were sitting there and I was like, I wonder how much this is. And I knew, I think it was just a candelabra on the table at the venue we were at, but I knew to ask you. I said, could I get a price check on it?
And we were playing a show at the castle from Beauty and the Beast, which is why there was a candelabra.
That's right. Belle was there. Everybody. Yeah. Gaston. Yeah.
Can we get a price check on Lumineer, Mike?
Can we get a price check on a bureau that talks?
Can we get a price check on this English-speaking teapot, Michael?
And I knew it was you. I knew it would be you. I knew you knew. And
off to the races.
I think having that outlet changed. Like I wouldn't have. A lot of people say that. I don't know that I would have survived.
Yeah.
I was a very self-destructive, drinking and just, I didn't have a direction. And I think music gave me that outlet throughout high school. And
I had a very similar, I had a very similar situation where the first time I sang as part of a band, I was 16, and there was some older kids I had met going to shows that were like, "Hey, we have a band that we're trying to do. Do you play guitar?" And I was like, "I do not play guitar. I'm so sorry." They're like, "Do you want to come sing?" I was like, "Of course. Yeah, why not? At the very least, you guys know how to get beer. I like drinking beer. I think I would like to drink more of it to really do some research." And I went and I remember singing and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." Like it was just some dumb Ramones song. It's either about girls or dancing if the Ramones are singing it. and I just remember being like, "Oh, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. I would like to do this way more." But because of this weird school that I was in and kind of this odd track that I was on of going to this very, very, very strict private Catholic school and being, basically
I went to Catholic school from the time I was, from my started school, I was in Catholic school till second grade. I went to a school through second grade. I went to a school called Holy Infant Jesus in Nashua, New Hampshire.
That sounds so fake.
It's fucking real.
Holy Infant Baby Sweet Jesus.
Holy Infant Jesus. And I went there, and in 1985, we couldn't be integrated with the girls. Like you could not be we were separated. We were separated on the playground, every part of it.
Like elementary school, everything.
Yeah.
Whoa. So it was a school for both boys and girls, but they didn't. So they would just have two classrooms or a sheet in the middle, at an Orthodox Jewish wedding. What are we talking
about? So the girls would be on one side and the boys would be on the other. But on the playground, when we played, the boys stayed on one side of the playground and the girls stayed on the other. And a line of nuns watched to make sure we didn't mix in. And that was a super fun game, was to as a boy to see if you could, how far into the girls' territory you could run out. And
very high stakes Red Rover.
That's exactly. Yeah, and if you lose, you get caned.
Yeah, did they go?
Did you guys have the same side every time, or did you get to switch back and forth?
Oh, I don't remember that. That would be shitty if they gave them the side that's near all the snowbanks and
just broken glass for the boys and toys for the girls.
Yeah, knowing how Catholics treat women, it's in all likelihood they were ditch side. Probably.
Yeah, those girls were playing hopscotch in fields of needles. That's all.
It was. The nuns were terrible. Everything they say about nuns at Catholic schools, they were the worst. Priests were excessively nice for probably because it was a dating pool for them. So
Ben can make that joke. All right.
Yeah, Ben's currently got a big bone to pick with the Catholic Church.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, they yeah, I went to Catholic summer camps. I went, I went to a camp called Camp Fatima. That was a Catholic summer camp. And so I grew up very, like I imagine you did. I mean, I grew up very strict. Were you Catholic, Ken?
No, not even the slightest bit Catholic.
Does that sound fun? Do you think you missed out, Ken?
For sure. I think that I missed out on like tons of sexual awakening that I could have had earlier.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And, spending most of your formative years going, is this right? I think that does good things for you later on in your adulthood.
Yeah, sure.
Hanging a giant, it's not a cross to me. It's a big question mark. That's all it is. I look at it and I'm like, should you be doing that? You know what I mean?
You have a scoliosis, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's all, Kirby. We're having fun.
Not many people realize Jesus is on the cross going, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's right.
Do you believe this? I don't.
I don't know. So, yeah, it's growing up Catholic was a very
it's very weird, and and we don't have to spend too much time on this, but like I was in I want to say I was in 7th grade when the article that the movie Spotlight is based off of came out, and everything kind of blew up.
Wait, Spotlight? What's Spotlight?
Okay, so
Spotlight was a section of the Boston Globe. It was called the Spotlight, and they were known for doing like deep investigative reports and putting the spotlight on something. And they had done a big expose on Boston, like the archdiocese awareness of sexual misconduct by people very high up in the church, and their awareness that priests were committing systemic abuse of children, and then they were moving them from parish to parish rather than convicting them of crimes or bringing them to any kind of justice. So
and then I later found out that the priest who baptized me moved to Alaska about 2 months after I was baptized, and kind of getting moved to Alaska. I don't know if he actually got moved to Alaska, but that was kind of like, hey, that guy was probably.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I know for sure that the guy who ran that Catholic camp, Camp Fatima, until 1987, is this guy named Father Dowd. He was one of the priests named in the Spotlight article. And man, did he create a real fun atmosphere of camping there. Yeah, real loosey-goosey. You know what I mean? He really, Camp Fatima in Manchester, New Hampshire, for many years, did a lot of great things for the kids that went there. So, big thumbs up to you fucking assholes. Yeah. But anyway, so
they also, but they made a movie about the writing of the article called Spotlight. It's a pretty good movie.
It is a pretty good movie. A very compelling. Nice. Yeah. It was sad. It was hard to watch. Like I watched it.
Oh my God. I saw it on the road in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I remember
doing stand up.
Yeah.
Oh God. You didn't watch that before you went on stage.
He's just in the green room, just in the green room watching this terrible documentary. Yeah, they're like, hey, welcome to the stage, Mike. And you're like, oh, sorry, I got to put this away.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I got to bury some cruise ship comic at the joke joint.
Holy shit.
Ken wasn't a good booker. That's all I'm saying. It's okay.
Holy shit. What a fucking weird thing to watch before you go up on stage.
Well, I thought I was like, I don't know, man. There's certain things that show up in a movie that don't, I got a, this is going to sound like such a douchey thing to say.
No.
I got a minor in film theory from Michigan State University.
Sure.
So I look at film a little bit more objectively when I can.
Right.
And so I can see a movie about that and be like, well, I would have done this. This might have gone this way. The lighting here, the mise en scène. And luckily I was about to do that before I had some real crackerjack shows at that strip mall in Lilydale. I don't even know if it was the joke. So so you're 10. Just remind us what it was like, a big roll of toilet paper. What'd you guys burn?
Oh yeah. Well, so I moved from New Hampshire to and I started going to public school and I met public school kids.
Wrong side of the tracks.
And public school kids were into the stuff I was into, and
like fire,
and
keeping your mouth shut, all the good stuff,
and fire. And so I met this kid, and we became very fast friends, and we used to hang out after school. After school was done, and it was an very old building that had these big like cast iron windows that would open up, and one was ground level. That happened to be the
entrance.
Would the windows kind of be on like just one hinge where it would just go? They would go from here to here.
Yeah, they were like put in the sides, right?
Yeah.
And then when you shut them, you had to like crank these two metal things down, Yeah. But the one that was on the ground floor was the janitor's office, and when he would leave, we'd just climb in and steal his Marlboro Reds and grab lighters. And then we got into the school through that. And then he and I this kid, his name's Seth Gates. Seth, I hope you're listening.
Seth Bill Gates, he's out there.
His name's Bill Gates. No, Seth and I, we like got into the bathroom and then we climbed over these set of lockers to a storage area that was behind all of it. And we just started lighting shit on fire. Because we had lighters. I mean,
yeah, of course.
Wait, you climbed behind something? You had to climb behind it to set fire.
Yeah.
So that means you were
so you're like
stuck.
In clean.
No, okay. So imagine this is a locker room, and there's like a gate that's locked. It's like where they keep storage, a whole storage area behind that. And you can't get through that. But the way you can get it is by climbing over the lockers to get into that room. And that's how we got in there. And we were looking at what was stored in there. And then we just found tons of rolls of toilet paper and just, you know what I mean? I think Chekhov said it. If you introduce a lighter in the first act, it's got to go off. That
was Walter Koenig, Chekhov from Star Trek.
So we introduced the lighter. It followed a storyline that was it was a well-written storyline. Yeah. And then I got a couple days later, I folded completely under questioning. There was no I hadn't learned to not rat at that point or anything. I just they went up all over the loudspeaker at school, and they were like, someone lit a fire and was setting fires, and we're gonna find you. And
is that how they said it? Like,
I mean,
hey guys, someone here is really not doing what they should be doing.
Yeah, the principal said it, and then they just started asking people who just asking randomly. They were like, "Was it you?" And I was like, "Yeah." It was me, and Seth Gates did it.
Totally us.
Yeah, wait, you told on your friend too?
Oh yeah, I ratted.
You're not even gonna fall on the sword. You're just like, it was me. It was Seth Gates.
I ratted so fucking hard. I ratted out Seth Gates, and I went back to class, and I didn't know what was going to come of that. And then the cops showed up.
Oh shit!
And then they came and they arrested. They brought me out of the cops escorted me out of class, which you'd think would make you cool, but not in 5th grade. It's a little early.
Oh, that's you were 5 years too early, man.
Deeply troubling, and so they wrote me up, and I had a record for it. Basically, if I didn't get in trouble, the best part was the chief of police happened to be one of my dad's best friends. And my dad was pretty excited about that. My dad, the Rotarian, was Bob Roy, president of the telephone company, having to come retrieve his old young boy for setting tampons and maxi pads and toilet paper on fire. There was a lot of, I'm sure the comment, "Hey Joe, how are you? Bob Roy."
They cuff you?
No. They just, and like our school was directly like next door to the police station. So they just walked me over. They did it clearly to scare me and
everyone. And
poor Seth Gates, who, just got rolled over on. I want to admit this. I want to just set the record straight.
Please do.
That you should have walked away scot-free. I don't know that I've ever revealed to him that I ratted on him so hard. But it was
through the book at Gates.
Yeah, it was a pressureless fold too. I mean, there was more like a kind of a question like, "So were you the one that set the fire?" And I remember just being like, "Yeah." I didn't
What did you think was going to happen when you told? Like, were you just like, they're probably not going to care after I tell them myself?
No, my heart was racing so fast, and I was so scared because they put it on the speaker, like they put it over to the entire school, and I was like, holy shit. Like, I remember just sitting there and instantly having to shit so bad. And like, I can't imagine what it looked like, because they came over the intercom and like, just like my teacher, Mr. Drury, looking out over the entire class, and then just hearing that and hearing one like sigh and like, and then like one fidgety shit, like, so. Yeah, I don't know why they asked me, but I'm pretty sure I had some tells. Mr. Drury probably picked out my tells, but it wasn't the only time I was arrested at school. So,
what else did you get arrested for at school, Ben?
I got in high school. I got caught with possessing a fairly sizable amount of marijuana on school property.
You would be
but that time,
as an entrepreneur.
While I admitted it, I did not turn and rat on anybody. They wanted me to rat, and I didn't. I had learned my lesson the first time. So I told them I got caught with pot on school property, and I had like a half ounce or something, and I was partying that weekend. Everybody was partying. We were all gonna party. I wasn't just using it for me. And they brought me into the office, searched my bag because he had seen me. A teacher thought I was dealing. I wasn't. I left and went and grabbed it and came back. And I remember the principal like being like, "So where did you get this?" And I was like, "From a guy." And he was like, "Where?" And I was like, "Downtown." And Winthrop, and he was like, "Winthrop's a town of it's 4,300 people, and it's
that guy knows all the guys."
Yeah. It's an hour away from the ocean. I'm telling you this for a reason, because it'll make sense. It's an hour away from the ocean and easily 5 hours from the nearest naval shipyard. So just, you should know this before So he's like, "What did the guy look like?" And I was like, "He was in a uniform." And he was like, "What kind of uniform?" And I was like a white military uniform. And he was like, "A white military uniform." I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "How did you know this guy?" And I was like, "I just went up and asked him if he had any pot." And my principal was like, "So you purchased marijuana from a sailor you didn't know?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "You expect me to believe this?" And I was like, "Nope." Nah. Like,
and then you went, "Oh wait, Mr. Principal, excuse me, that sailor's name, Seth Gates."
Yeah. And I roll on Seth again.
You roll on Seth again.
He's still doing time from. No, I forget that it was a fucking sailor, and he was like,
sailor.
I wasn't gonna tell. But
he was a sailor. He had giant forearms with anchor tattoos on him. He was eating spinach. He was a sailor.
A pipe also.
He had a cute waifish raven-haired lady with him.
He was hanging out with this guy who really wanted a hamburger but couldn't pay for it.
But it sent ripples like through the school when people found out that I'd been caught. People just started ditching their drugs everywhere because we had a pretty decent drug problem there. And
Steve Stritchar's got nicked with a bunch of he had, I think, 65 tabs of ecstasy.
Oh, dude, that's next level shit.
Yeah, he was like going downtown to get. It was like a week before prom, and he went downtown to get a shitload of ecstasy, and that was like, oh, we gotta like lay low, and it was like, okay.
And like, why do they have
put my bowl in the back seat? I guess I don't fucking care.
Yeah. You're gonna get more kids out of it. There'll be a good population rejuvenation. You know what I mean? And young parents have all the energy. Yeah, I didn't do. I mean, to me, getting caught. Like other people had acid and like pills and stuff, and like, but everybody heard and they were worried I was gonna like say something. And so when I didn't, I remember like after that, people like walking through the halls after I'd returned back from my suspension, like people patting me on the back and being like, "Yeah, dude, you didn't roll."
Yeah, dude.
And Seth Gates is like, "I know who you are."
Seth Gates with his teardrop tattoo.
He'd already transferred by that point, but the thing was that I was liked, like even I got along with everybody in my class because it was a small class, you know. It was 80 something kids. I knew everybody in school, and by that point I like was really into music, so I took chorus and band, and then I really got into theater because that was the other place where I could be in front of an audience. And so people knew me, and even the faculty, like I got along with the faculty. They knew I like got in trouble and had issues, but like I was that kid that they liked, you know, like,
yeah.
So I think that kind of saved me a little bit. I probably could have gotten a lot more trouble had I been an asshole about it. But
for sure, yeah. What were like the big things that you remember from doing theater in high school? Like, I'm sure some of it kind of stuck throughout stand up, and then obviously through.
It changed my life.
Yeah,
I mean, when we sold Those Who Can't, the show, like they asked us if we wanted to bring a teacher that like Turner would fly them out to the premiere so that we would be there with like the teacher who like had a profound effect. And mine was he couldn't come out because by that point he's pretty old and he had some health issues. But my drama teacher, Bud Barnes, he changed. I still use things that I learned from him. I mean, he was the first person to anybody who's seen me do stand-up knows that I use the entirety of the space. And he was the first person to teach, like, be interesting to look at on stage. Like,
by the entirety of the space, that's including audience members' mouths.
Yeah, well, he didn't tell me. Listen, he didn't tell me to put my hands in people's mouths, but I think I knew what he was getting at when he said explore the space, find the space, work the dark corners. I think he meant in people's mouths. I don't know that he could have said that as a tenured faculty member, but I think
I don't think he could have. Yeah, I think that would have been a nick on his record.
I mean, if this is a Catholic high school, probably.
This was not. He was just like that guy that like he was the first person to tell me to be silly on stage and to not be afraid to be silly. Like, and he was not afraid to be so loud, and he had this like boisterous laugh where he would just he was so loud and just gregarious. And I remember like he was the first person that taught me to like be totally at ease on stage. And he always used to say, "Do it for the deaf old lady in the back." So it's like he taught me to project on stage and to like pace the stage. If you're the only person, use it, because he's like, people don't fall asleep when they're following you, you know, there's a time to be still for effect, you know. But he was the guy that like really taught me to like to let go. And I'll remember you were only supposed to take drama in our school because it was such a small theater program. You were only allowed to take it as an elective 1 year. You were only supposed to take it as a senior. I got in my freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. And by the end of it, I was kind of helping him with classes, like teaching stuff. And then he got me into there was a professional group of players because there's a lot of people who vacation from New York. So during the summers, there's this place called, it's this giant hall and theater program called the Monmouth Players, and they do Shakespearean theater, and they're professional actors. And so I got to be an understudy after I graduated. Because so like but I remember the senior play came up, and we all were auditioning, and I felt as if I should be a lead character. And he cast me for a character of a butler that was not a main character. It was in 10 Little Indians, that Agatha Christie play. And I remember being so upset. And he was like, that is a dud role. And he was like, I want you to learn to take a small role and make it something. And I turned that into a thing that like people like really, he was a comical character.
Yeah.
He became like a big part of that play, like a kind of a star of that show. And he was like, that's why I did it. Like, cause if you give it to somebody who doesn't know, it's going to be a forgettable character, you know? So he was just one of those people that taught like any role you're given, put everything into it. And he was just an amazing, theater changed theater and music. I don't know what I would have done without that, you know?
Yeah. I had not in theater. I've mentioned a couple of times on the show, my high school there's no theater. But I took my English class senior year. We had to give a reading, and it could be from any book that you wanted.
Sweet.
And I did one from Don Rickles' book.
What? That's so amazing. You already knew you wanted to do comedy back then?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I knew maybe when I was 16.
Ken, you're saying, did you know early on you wanted to do stand-up?
Did you know I wanted to do stand-up back then?
I knew Mike wanted to do stand-up when he was 16, but for me, hell no. I think I was 22, 21 when I first did stand-up. I always loved watching stand-up, but I just never like knowing that I want that wasn't like a reality. Like there was no.
Yeah. It wasn't on my radar.
Yeah.
It was
I always really, I don't know why I gravitated toward it. But
well, you're funny. I mean, if it makes you feel better. So
the only thing that I wish I would have done different, I wish I would have started 3 years later than I did, because when you're 19 and you have fucking nothing to talk about, and you're also just learning how to be a person. So you're also kind of, at least I was starting in Michigan, you're interacting with a lot of people that are 15, 20 years older than you.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was just so
at the very least at that time.
Yeah.
Like in the early 2000s for sure. I mean, I felt like it. Now I feel like it's a lot younger.
Oh, Chicago. I mean, there's so many 23-year-old kids doing comedy in Chicago now, which is great to see.
Yeah. I mean, Denver has a very young scene too. I mean, it's very robust. I mean, we had a kid. I mean, she's a kid. She was on our show. She did the Grawlix. Her name's Lily Osberg. She was 17 when she did the show. And she
nuts, man.
Fucking crushed. And like, I was like, you when you were born, I was starting to realize I had an addiction. Like I was starting to like figure out like I may not have control over this anymore, you know? And you're like being shat out of somebody's midsection. And I think I started doing stand-up like when she was like a year old, you know? And so like
that's crazy.
And crushed. like, and it's dark and it's funny and it's self-aware. And I was like, and her boyfriend, I don't know if they're together. I mean, that they, relationships at that age have the lifespan of a fruit fly, but she like could have, like, her boyfriend at the time was a very funny dude. And I just call them little dudes. I'm like, you're just fucking half. Yeah. But the stand up to me, like, my dad had a Bill Cosby tape, and I used to listen to Bill Cosby himself all the time. Like, but I didn't think of stand up as being an avenue I would have ever gone into.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't like stand up. I didn't listen to it. It was not like, other than that, which was in a tape, like in a cassette thing that had the Beatles and Cat Stevens, and
you also like kind of came of age at a time when stand-up was a little bit lame.
Yes.
Where there was like stand-up was just like, and I'll eventually tell the rest of this Rickles story in a second. It's not
yeah,
that
no. Finish that.
But,
sorry.
But like stand-up in, from like 87 to probably like 98, 99 was just like, hey, I have a sport coat. The sleeves are pushed up. And isn't it crazy that the candy at the movies is so big? Like,
right.
That was all of what stand-up was. And it was lame. And then like
it's what Steve Hofstetter, when he rues being gone. It's what he's like, those were the good old days. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. Never mind.
No, I'm not. I don't know. I don't know.
Got that out if you need to.
He asked me to do a show that I was like, he asked me to do the Michigan taping. And I was like, I just moved to Minneapolis. Can I do the one up here? And then he just never emailed me back. So that's my Steve Hofstetter.
Comic destroys Mike O'Keefe.
Yeah.
That's an inside
destroys
joke.
Email etiquette.
Anyway, so tell me about this Don Rickles thing. So
it's a book called Rickles' Book. That's the name of his book. It's a very fast read. Lesser Man had finished it in half an hour, right. Half an afternoon. But I went and I was like, I did a reading from this book, and like other kids are reading from like The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Someone did like a trial courtroom scene from To Kill a Mockingbird. Like people are doing like serious things.
And you're like, what are you hockey pucks doing?
It's like Japanese. Oh, don't talk about the Japanese. Anyway.
Yeah.
But so I read this thing, and there's a chapter in the book that's a story about the Rat Pack called Don Rhino, and Frank made him a bathrobe with a embroidered rhino on the back, and then they gave it to him in the sauna, and then they took it back from him and made him run through the hotel. So I read this, and I'm just so nervous to be funny in front of the whole class, because I'm funny with the people I'm in my bands with. I'm funny with like the three knuckleheads I sit with at lunch, but I'm not a showy, garish guy.
Yeah.
But I read it, and it goes decent. And my teacher, Mr. Petrovich, after class, he's like, Michael. That's how he was a short guy, but he'd look up at you like this. You go, Michael, I think you're very funny. And I don't think you showed that today. So I would like you to pick another selection from that book and read it tomorrow. And I said, will I get a better grade? And he said, I can almost guarantee that you will. And he said, go back home, read it, get into it, really perform it. And I think it's going to be great. And maybe one day down the line, you'll try doing stand-up on your own. I go home. I'm nervous. I'm incredibly nervous. I think I had a shift at the restaurant that night. And so like, I'm reading it while we're slow and stuff like that. And I remember going back and I read it. I read like another chapter the next day about Don Rickles' time on the set of Beach Blanket Bingo or something like that.
Yeah.
And it went slightly better than the day before.
And what did he say?
He just went, I'm glad you gave it a try. I still think you're very funny. Maybe try another chapter. And I went, oh, and he went, I'm kidding. You can go.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wait,
Just insane. And I can't.
Did that put the bug in you? Like, I want to do this?
That was one of the first times where I was like, oh, being a comedian isn't this otherworldly thing. Being a comedian isn't like not everyone is just born and poof, and then they're Chris Rock. Yeah. You know, like there's ways to do this and ways to work at this. And then, so that would have been my senior year. That was the first time I ever spoke in public, period.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy. And then that happens. And then that next November, December of that coming year, it's freshman year of college. I go back for Christmas break, and I take the girl I'm seeing at the time to the Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase.
One of the best clubs ever.
Yep, 100%. We see one of the best comics ever, Mr. Jimmy Pardo.
Oh, man.
And
what a great, was that your first live comedy show?
I would go to that club all the time in high school.
Oh, okay.
I would like sneak in.
You were like a legit fan. Like you really, wow.
Yeah, I remember seeing in high school, the big ones that I remember were Patrice, Gary Goldman, Bamford, Jackie Cation, Pardo, and then I would see local headliners that like weren't on TV, because I was just like, maybe like, you know, kind of like in punk rock where you kind of have like a hometown pride of like, oh, there are like
some of those local comics crushed just as hard. I mean, they would.
Yeah, they crushed just as hard. But even at that age, I was like, oh, there's
difference.
Tricks you can do.
I was the opposite, because like, well, to a certain extent, like my wife, I met her in Maine.
Worked at Comedy Works, right?
Yeah, she worked at Comedy Works, and I just started hanging out there when she would get off her shift. You know, they'd have shift drinks and you could smoke in the club at that time. And I just started to hang out with her because she hung out with the other waitresses and staff members and stuff. So I hated stand-up. And then I started seeing, like, I remember seeing like David Cross, and I remember seeing Daniel Tosh very early on, and Tosh crushed harder. I mean, he would annihilate a room. I mean, it was, and like Richard Jenny, and I saw Greg Giraldo, and like Robert Schimmel, like, and I remember thinking like, oh man, like this is actually like different than what my perception was. And then I remember seeing locals, and I would go to see local shows. Troy Baxley.
Baxley's Baxley's hilarious.
Yeah, he's one of the funniest. In his prime, was one of the funniest human beings on the planet.
Once you're done, I have a very quick Baxley story. But
I mean, Troy was a guy when we started out that like we were like, fuck that dude. This guy Lewis Johnson. There were this guy Rick Kearns. Rick Kearns wrote for years for like Larry the Cable Guy and Ron White. He was like their head writers, you know, like Phil Palisol was like he'd been on like the Tonight Show and shit.
Palisol's like really funny.
Rocky Laporte, like comics like that, who on the off nights, Lewis Johnson is one of those guys that when I would go down to the club, we'd stand on the side and my jaw would be open. And I would just be like, if I can just be that good, he would just, it would joke, boom, the room would just blow up. And I was like, I want to headline this club. I want to be a headliner here. That became my new goal. Like, it was like, I want to be the top dog, and I want to like do that to a room. And Chuck Roy Chuck Roy he was another guy that a lot of the comics know him because he was like kind of the house MC at Comedy Works. And so he knew all the big comics, and man, could that guy fucking kill. And there was the local people that like really invigorated like my love for this, because the other people just felt like they came and went and it was a life that I didn't know,
they were like a touring band that you didn't,
and I never talked to them about what it was like, but like sitting around and picking Troy Baxley's brain, which as much as you can pick Baxley's brain, he's one of the most bizarre human beings. We did
go Brouhaha in Cincinnati together, which is like
Cincinnati loved him. Like,
he's a god there. This, since he loves like a couple people that like Robert Hawkins might as well be the mayor of Cincinnati.
Yeah,
and, Hawkins is one of the funniest dudes. But whenever he's in Cincinnati, he's not buying drinks. He's not buying food. He's the mayor. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But what I hadn't met him yet. And so it's Brouhaha, which is a big, giant outdoor craft beer / comedy festival. And it's really fun. But if you go up before dark, you're going to bomb. That's just what happens. There's literally no way around it.
Fix the problems with it. It's just, you just do that.
It's just what it is, because people are day drunk and it's bright out, and that's not horrible for comedy. And so I go up and I'm just like farting around. I have the set that I was going to have at Brouhaha. And it's really you're really just there to hang out. And, Baxley comes up to me and he says, "Hey son, I saw you up there." And I go, "Oh, hope you like it. I hope you did very well." He went, I run this festival, and you want to go back up tomorrow. I think your chances of that would be greatly improved if I had $200 in my hand right now." And then he just walks away.
So Baxley, for people who don't know who he is the most random human being. I mean, his stand-up is hard to define. It's absurdist. It's fucking weird. And it is so funny. It would make me double over crying. It was a weird thing. Like, so at sometime around 2014 or 15, I'm headlining clubs now. And he asked me, "Do you mind if..." No.
Sorry.
Exactly. It's weird. And he asks me, "Hey, you're going to the Omaha Funny Bone. I love it. Can I feature for you?" And I was like,
"Oh shit,
I don't feel comturable with you featuring. But if you want to come, I'll give you time, but you should go after me, dude. You're like somebody we all looked up to, and when he crushes, I don't want to follow that." But he was like, no, I want to come, and I'm working on stuff. And so we get put up at this like Hilton Garden Inn. And when we walk in, behind the counter, there's this guest of the month placard, and he starts riffing on it. He thinks it's the funniest thing. He's like, what schlub gets put as guest of the month? So like 2 days of shows go by, and I come down one morning for breakfast, and he is the guest of the month. I don't know. But I get him to the counter, and I turn and I look, and I'm like, son of a bitch, is that fucking funny? What the fuck? I was like, Troy Baxley's the guest of the month. And they were like, yeah, he's the guest of the month. He's quite a phenomenal guest here. And I don't know what finagling he had to do with the person at the counter to get them to put his name as the guest of the month.
So fucking funny.
But I cried laughing because he made fun of this. He just, what kind of knuckle fuck? You know how he taught, just what kind of shit? Like knuckle fucking moron is it's a Hilton Garden Inn. You know what I mean? And he's just going off on it. And then he had the foresight and the wherewithal to long con me.
This is really going to pay off in 2 days, huh, Benny?
Dude, 2 days. It's the right amount of time, because if he had done it any sooner, it's not going to be funny, but I forgot about it.
If he would have done it when you guys got together to drive to the show, that story's like a 6. 2 days. Yeah. That story's a fucking 50. Oh
yeah, because I forgot, and I went up to that, pass by the counter, and I'm like, and I immediately started laughing. And I think the woman behind the counter was not the person who did it, because she had no fucking clue what was.
Yeah,
she was just like, what? And I'm like, how did he become the guest of the month? And she's like, oh, he's a very good guest. Like, she had to say that or something. I don't know. But I was
gotta toe the line.
I know that guy. Like, he just did shit like that. He did a puppet show one time he brought a hand puppet to do a ventriloquist act that was just a sock. And the crowd hated it. Did not love any of it.
Yeah. And
the puppet, he was like, I found this sock in my pile and I made him into a puppet, and he was doing the show, and every time he opened the mouth, it would fling hand lotion on the first few like rows of seats, and the crowd does not like it at all.
Why would they?
That's hilarious.
That's fucking amazing. First of all, that's amazing.
Yeah,
with jack sauce. Jesus.
And then except for a line of about 10 comics along the wall. Literally, at one point, I was on my hands and knees laughing, because the room was, you could hear a fucking pin drop, except this jackal laughing from every comic on the side, because he would not abandon it.
Of course.
He committed so hard. 10 minutes, ate the most shit with this lotioned up fucking puppet. And I'm telling this, and people watching or listening probably are laughing. It's single-handedly one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, because he fully committed to it.
Yeah.
No shame. Like, he just and it was not, but he's not even truly, it was terrible.
Why would he be?
It's more about the thing spitting its lotion all over it. I don't know where I found this sock. And it would just spray.
Don't say that to the nice lady, Saki.
And it would get on his face and stuff. And oh god, it was, and it was not highbrow. It was so childish. And
really? The lotion sock gag wasn't highbrow. All right, fair enough.
I will just tell Baxley. Baxley used to do a story. He would come out at Christmas and play a rapper named Chimney. He had a hoodie on, and he would have these terrible rhymes, and he had bulbs, like tree bulb, like ornament bulbs around his neck, and he would rap. And then he had a girl do a voice from the sound booth, and he would do his rap, get no laugh, and then you just hear this girl over the loudspeaker go, "Chimney's got the backdoor key." They were like nonsensical phrases that he'd written down that like were non sequiturs. Did you be like, "2-hole-em, Chimney, 2-hole-em," and no one understood what was going on, and he would do these things strictly for the side of the room or the back of the room. All of us are like, I mean, funniest human being. It's too bad, because he's struggled with his alcoholism and stuff, and the sky's the limit for a dude with that kind of talent, but even those types of people, long story short, or long story long, made me want to be a comic.
Well, I mean, but honestly, that does go back to what your drama teacher said about allowing yourself to be silly and be crazy.
Yeah.
And
to be in the moment.
To be in the moment, and that sort of presence of mind to kind of get rid of all of the other constructs of what's going on and just do what you feel like you need to do. I think that is one of the most important things that you can tell a young performer. More importantly, tell a young person, because I think it's so easy right now to get, like, I'm literally looking at 4 screens right now. And but
they're all of yourself.
It's all of me, of course.
Yeah.
It's all me looking at my Instagram.
Angles of your head. And
but just being able, like, anytime anyone can get into the moment. And that's why I think meditation is a great tool and a great technique.
I mean, I say
and that's the same thing in an odd way, you know?
Yeah, jokes are going to make you popular with a crowd, but it's the in the moment stuff that's going to make you a legend with your peers.
Yeah.
And that's the shit. That's the shit we talk about. You know, I think as comics amongst ourselves is, did you see what Fucknuts did the other night on stage? You should, I mean, he was up in the scaffolding. The crowd hated it. I mean, yeah, they didn't get it. But I mean, he's hanging fully up. You know, it's shit like that. Or like Rory. Yeah. I remember going to a festival and seeing Rory Scovel not explain on the TV taping why he's doing a German accent.
Oh, yeah. I've seen him do that.
Like, what? Why are you doing it? He never explained it to the crowd, never qualified it, just did a 10-minute TV set and did not tell anybody why he was speaking in this in a German accent. Like, he just did it. And we all buzzed about that for most of did you see what Rory did? It was a TV taping. Like, that's a new level of like staying in the moment, where, because the crowd was like, what is this dude? What's he doing? You know, like, yeah, this is very crazy. Yeah. And like, never qualified it at all.
Have you seen the Storage Wars? I watched Storage Wars. Have
you watched Storage Wars? Yeah, it was insane. And I remember being like, we were all down and watching it on monitors, like, I'm not gonna go up there and like go off. I'm gonna wield through my pre-written jokes, you know. But
yeah. Well, I also think, if you know, and it's such an odd thing to talk about what audience is like 10 months into a pandemic, but I think good audiences full of people who like comedy love you being in the moment as much as any comic.
Mm-hmm. Those are the best. I mean, it's the off the cuff shit that, I mean, look at what Big Jay Okerson has done with his career of just parlaying like crowd work into like a full career of like what he does. I mean, because that's so popular, people, you know, they love that. They think it's quick, and they are like, you know, yeah.
Is he doing well though? Guy can't afford a full glove, you know. That's not fair.
I'm glad we burned him.
Yeah, I'm taking him down a peg or two. Remember that scumbag left? How about nice guy left?
Yeah, I miss crowds.
Oh yeah.
I love doing this, and I love chatting with friends, but it's not doing it.
I've started to do more and more Zoom sets over the last like maybe month, just because I'm like, I think I just need to do a simulated version of stand-up. Like, it's not the real thing. There's no way to possibly reconstruct actual stand-up, but you know,
like I've done a few like stand-up Zoom shows, and they've killed my soul.
They're not. I mean, it's like
I don't,
you know.
Yeah,
not fun. But it's I write for them, which is good. That's
it's like having to go to the bathroom really bad, and then being forced to subsist on just a fart.
Yeah.
You know, like, and you're like, we'll just pass them, like, let some farts out. And now, no, this, I have to relieve the full entirety of this.
I have to paint the bowl, baby.
Are they doing anything in Chicago?
No, everything's closed down.
They just opened up, man.
Okay. So are the clubs, I know 25 people is like the max they can let in somewhere.
Yeah. It's like 25% capacity now. So like a couple of I just saw somebody post about it the other day. Because I thought we weren't gonna open until like March, honestly, but I guess we're at like 25% capacity now. So some people are doing some indoor bar type show stuff.
I mean, just because of my family situation, I have to wait until I get vaxxed up just so I don't kill my mom or Mallory's parents.
I mean, that's why I haven't been home either. I mean, my parents, I want to be careful with that. Some members of my family that have better health than others. So, but yeah, I was supposed to come to Chicago to do shows, and it would have been cool to hang face to face. I miss like the green room chatter. I actually miss that. I miss going to a club and sitting and having a meal before my show and like talking to the feature and the MC about stand up, like those things that I probably took for granted, or sometimes I'd be like, I kind of want a little quiet tonight or whatever. Like I would kind of retreat a little bit. Now I'm like, I would love that. I would eat that up right now, So
speaking of stuff you love, we got to do the quiz real quick, and then we got to get out of here. This has been a lovely chat. This has been a real good time.
Oh no.
A keeper, baby. Guess what? I'm gonna ask you some UFC questions. How's that grab you?
UFC question.
All right, I'll do my best.
Ben loves the fight game. He loves the sweet science.
I love it. And you say that, and then I have the tattoos, and it makes it sound like I'm this. Yeah, I love jujitsu. It is like my passion.
Yeah,
because it's very good for my anxiety. I have a panic disorder, and so like I tend to have anxiety and panic attacks very easily, and it's the thing that's kept me. So, and I hate fighting, but I love the sport of fighting. I think is, but much like, I will say this, much like the band Tool, ruined by its fans.
Oh yeah,
like great. I actually think Tool released like 3 pretty great albums. I can admit that, but ruined by fans of Tool. All right, let's do it. UFC questions. Oh man.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. And I'm almost afraid to get these right, because it says something about me.
No, it doesn't. Who cares?
Right. Here we go.
All right, number 1. Who are the only 2 fighters to wear UFC gold in 2 different weight classes? I should say I don't know the answers to any of these. I don't know any of these people. I like pro wrestling and soccer. I don't know anything about this, but I did Google these questions. So there we go.
Anyway. Conor McGregor in 2 different weight classes.
Yeah.
And Daniel Cormier.
You said Randy Couture and BJ Penn, right? Again, this is for charity.
No. I didn't. Oh, UFC gold?
Yeah.
In 2 different weight classes. They're not the only 2.
They were when this quiz was written.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sure. But I'll take it. I'm sure I know Connor did, because that's a person that I have to follow.
Champ, and then Daniel Cormier did it. And then I think Amanda Nunes has now done it.
I was gonna say Amanda, yeah.
Amanda's done it since then. There's been a few champs, but anyway, I got it wrong. But if I had known it were older, yeah, go ahead. What's the next one?
Okay.
Now
also,
know the era.
What charity are you playing for? I forgot to ask you.
Oh yeah, Elevating Connections, or it's a Camp to Belong, the group of people that work with foster children, because in Colorado, foster kids that are siblings can be separated into different foster homes. So Elevating Connections works with these organizations to bring foster family members, siblings together for connecting events throughout the year. So and once a year they go to camp for a week, Camp to Belong, and they spend a week at camp with their siblings, and it's an amazing cause. So
love it.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. All right, question number 2.
Yeah,
who is the first UFC champ ever?
Would be Hoist Gracie.
There you go.
Yeah, number 1. And he actually holds the record for most UFC tournaments won, because it was a tournament style before So, and he holds the UFC record for most wins in a single evening. He won he run 4 fights in one night.
That's crazy.
Because they used to have to fight in a tournament style. Now it's just by weight class and bouts.
Do you remember watching Ken Shamrock fight?
I loved Ken Shamrock.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as one can like Ken Shamrock, he's kind of an ass.
Douche now.
But watching him fight, to me, he was the first true mixed martial artist.
Oh,
and his gym, the Lion's Den, was, a notorious, like, blood-soaked factory of just dudes that just beat the shit out of each other. But they were the first to incorporate striking and sambo and wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and they like made it into this hodgepodge of a full, well-rounded fight thing to me. Like, he and Frank, his brother, Frank was a great fighter too. Anywho, all right, I could keep going on that.
Okay,
next one.
Yeah, here we go. Who is the first fighter to defeat Chuck Liddell inside the octagon?
Was Randy Couture.
I have Jeremy Horn.
Oh, that's right. You're right. It was Jeremy Horn. And that was a huge upset. Like, it was a big one and kind of a wake-up call for him, because he kind of surged after that. But yeah, I fucking forgot about that. That's crazy. Wow, I was stumped on that one. Good call. I just dove head first into it. I actually met Chuck Liddell at a Dave & Buster's in Denver, Colorado, speedball machine, because his fiance or whoever at that point is from Colorado. And this wasn't that long ago. And I was playing skee ball, and we're rolling the ball, my wife and I, and my son's there. And I just, you're just kind of turn, and Chuck Liddell is standing at the skee ball thing beside me. And I was like, yeah, Crystal. And she was like, my wife is named Crystal. She was like, what? And I'm like, Chuck Liddell beside me? Is that goddamn Chuck Liddell? And she was like, yeah, you need to calm down. And I was like, the Iceman. And so I turned to him, and I don't know why, I just went, sweating edge, nice to meet you, champ. And I didn't know, it was so awkward. Like, he was very nice. He was like, hey man, nice to meet you. And then he took off, but immediately people recognized who he was. He had the mohawk and the tattoo down his head.
Oh, of course.
He's a mountain of a human being.
He's very big. I met Bob Seger at a Pistons game once, and I was in line behind him to get a beer. And I just went, oh man, dude, night moves. And he went, yeah, that was a good one. And then he poured some salt on the top of his beer to get rid of the foam, and he walked away. That's my Bob Seger story. Perfect. That's all I want from him.
I didn't say that to, like, I did that to I'm like, I don't give a shit if I'm not like I was not like a huge fan of your stuff when I was younger or whatever. If I don't have some emotional connection, I'm just normal, like. But man, I creeped Henry Rollins out. Man, did I creep Rollins out when he came on to do Those Who Can't. It's a deep regret of mine. He won't remember it, but he had to ask me to give him some time.
Oh boy. Yeah. I basically
changed that. That was like an album for my life, TV party. I could go on and on. And can I get a photo? And he goes, do you mind if we film something first before we do photos? And I was like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing? I'm sorry. Oh, and by the way, you're playing my alter ego. Like, you're kind of playing me on the other side. I'll go.
Yeah. I punch so many mirrors because I love you.
But yeah, I love that. Do we have one more?
Yeah, two more. We'll go over.
Yes, I love this because I loved the UFC questions. Okay.
This is a UFC adjacent question. Why was Matt Riddle, kicked out of UFC?
No, wait, he wasn't kicked out for weed, was he? It was marijuana.
Yeah.
So both like Nate Diaz too, or Nick Diaz. I'm sorry, but
kicked out for weed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Diaz was suspended for a crazy long time for that. That's such a dumb arbitrary.
Well, now it's not. They don't even test for it anymore as of like a week ago, right?
Yeah, well, and they owe fighters who they kicked out an apology because like Riddle, like Diaz, they kicked some really solid fighters out for something that doesn't enhance your performance in any manner.
Yeah. I think Riddle was like 10-2 when they kicked him out too. Like he was
a fantastic fighter. I mean, he wasn't like, I don't know that he would have ever been champion, but he would have definitely fought for a long time in the UFC, and that was a fun fighter to watch too. That was, and ditto. I mean, when you look at what Nick Diaz went through, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, yeah. All right, hit me with that last one.
And back when Riddle wrestled on the indies, because he's a professional wrestler now, when he would wrestle on like independent shows, if you gave him an edible, he'd give you some free merchandise. So
really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you met him before?
A couple times. Yeah.
Is he a nice guy?
He is Matt Riddle 24/7.
Oh yeah.
Like he's just like he's Spicoli. He's
Yeah.
Anyway, this one is 100% just a WWE question, but you can probably guess it. Who did Brock Lesnar beat for his first WWE title?
Is it Kurt Angle?
No. That's so close though. It should have been, but it was The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
No, it wasn't. Was it really?
SummerSlam 2002.
I know why you're doing that. Damn. Everybody loves The Rock.
He's so charismatic and handsome.
Yeah. Yeah, but I really thought it was Kurt Angle.
What are you gonna do?
Did Kurt Angle have the belt?
Kurt Angle won the title a number of times. Yeah.
I for sure thought it was Kurt Angle too.
While, right? Like,
let me double check because I looked this up. I'm pretty sure it was Dwayne. I call him Dwayne because we're buddies.
Buds.
Yeah.
We hang out at the. I go, isn't it so cool that you're cool?
I call him DJ, but he prefers that. He likes it. I met like Kurt Angle did Those Who Can't, and man, what a nice dude. Like the nicest guy. And here's how crazy this dude is. Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
It was. Kurt Angle did our show. Just he played
the opposing wrestling coach. Yeah.
Yeah, the opposing team's wrestling coach. And he loses his shit and rips his clothes off and he goes fucking mental and throws people around. It's great. And he was so funny and so kind and gracious during it. I think like a year and a half later, Adam was at DIA and he hears somebody yell across the terminal, like, Adam! And Adam is like, turns around and it's fucking Kurt Angle.
That's
like, and he remembered. I mean, that guy does how much stuff he doesn't.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Small show like that.
Go on.
But,
sorry.
No. That was, I mean, just like, he still sometimes will like message me, like he'll message me on Twitter, you know, like, and just say, how's it going? You know, like, hope you're doing well. And he hyped Those Who Can't when it came out on HBO Max. I was like, this guy is the nicest dude, like, and genuine. Yeah. And we talked wrestling and jujitsu and MMA. He's like a big nut about it. So.
Oh, he's the real deal. Like he's, you know,
he's one of the greatest American wrestlers of all time. I mean, and he's built like it. He's not very big.
Yeah, he's only a couple inches taller than I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. And his neck was fucked when he was there. Yeah. He had a big scar down it. And,
yeah. Well, he had a couple fusions or something, I believe.
Yeah. And he was saying, because he would, in between takes, he would lay down in the ring and he would put his neck up on the turnbuckle to kind of keep his neck up like that because the pain, I guess, is pretty constant. But never complained, was funny, was gracious, got the joke. Like, and I mean, obviously being in the WWE, he's performed for a long time. So, but it was and arguably the most popular person we've ever had on set. I've never seen, everybody was so stoked. Like, I didn't get that much into wrestling, but you get behind the camera people, that's like wrestling country. Like,
oh my God. Yeah.
Well, there's camera people, like,
Something
like,
happened in 2014 when every comedian, like, we all just decided, well, we like wrestling now.
yeah.
We're going to talk about it nonstop.
Oh yeah, Andy Peters, I thought was gonna shit his pants.
Peters
I
loves
mean, he
it.
was like, you got the real Kurt Angle, you know what I mean? And here's the perfect example. I don't watch wrestling, so I had fantastic conversations with
Oh,
him
of course. Yeah.
because I didn't understand how big a deal it was. Like, I just thought, hey, he's a really nice guy, and he appears to be somewhat famous to people. And like, I didn't realize that this guy is massive. Like, kids on school property, like, were like, holy fuck, it's Kurt Angle. Like, and I just am like, I was like, so I know you were a wrestler. I do know you wrestle. Like, you were an Olympic. Like, do you watch much jujitsu or what? And he's like, man, I watch ADCC. Like, and I was like, we just geeked out on grappling.
He was also in that movie Warrior. Do you remember the movie Warrior?
Yeah.
Like the Russian dude.
A good actor. I thought he was a good actor. He's
in a couple like B movies that WWE made where he's like the best part of this movie that's about jet skis. I think he's good, you know.
Dude, I wish he put that quote on his Twitter feed.
Yeah.
The best part of a movie about jet skis. But yeah. Well, I'm sorry I didn't do as well on the quiz as I had hoped, but
guess what? They're still getting $25 from me, huh?
Yeah.
What do you say?
Who
cares? It'd be weird if we stuck to the thing.
They're an amazing organization, and if anybody can check out what Elevating Connections does, please do, because they're and what Camp To Belong does. They're amazing. So
love it. Well, that's the show. Thank you so much.
We made it through it.
We did it. We fucking killed it, buddy.
One take this time.
That shit can go. Can go. G-O-O-O-O-O. Shit
that guy can't go. He can go.
Go.
That man can go.
That can go. Those Who Can't is on HBO Max.
Yep.
Grawlix Saves the World.
3 seasons available for streaming. Grawlix Saves the World podcast is on Starburns Audio. If you get a chance, check it out. And then All Things Comedy, my podcast, Daddy Sheva Die, The Rat Race,